Ryan.
Great. Why? What have you heard?
Brace yourself, because what started off as a star-studded evening celebrating SNL's 50th anniversary ended up exposing one of Hollywood's most explosive secrets. Imagine walking into a lavish red carpet event, thinking it's all applause and laughter, only to be blindsided by a single razor-sharp joke aimed straight at your reputation. That's precisely what happened to Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds, once considered one of Hollywood's golden couples. The aftermath? Well, let's just say the industry's done pretending. This is the story of how two A-listers went from reigning over Hollywood to becoming the butt of every joke in town. And it all took place in front of a live studio audience. Colin Jost kicked off the fireworks. Picture the Weekend Update anchor, who also happens to be married to Scarlett Johansson. Yes, Scarlett, who was once Ryan Reynolds' wife. Now imagine him standing tall on that iconic SNL stage, calmly delivering a line so devastating that the entire room went silent for a split second. He was talking about a political figure's hopes of salvaging a relationship, but the real dagger came when he compared it to Justin Baldoni ever wanting to work with Blake Lively again. The subtext was crystal clear. Everyone knew Justin Baldoni had unleashed a legal battle against Blake and Ryan. Everyone also knew how personal that was, how it hinged on alleged manipulation and sabotage, and how it threatened to unravel the squeaky clean image these two had worked so hard to build. It only took one savage joke. That single bar put a neon spotlight on the scandal, transforming a festive celebration of SNL's legacy into a public execution of their reputations. Let's backtrack and see how we got to this moment. Months before the SNL fiasco, the rumor mill was buzzing about a major lawsuit. Justin Baldoni, known for directing and activism, was reportedly gearing up to file a massive complaint against none other than Blake Lively, and eventually Ryan Reynolds. At first, the details were murky. Something about a movie adaptation of the novel It Ends With Us, a big project Baldoni had been nurturing for years. He'd partnered with the author, spent untold hours shaping the film's concept, and was set to direct and produce. Then Blake Lively entered the picture. She wanted the lead role.
Blake Lively and Ryan Reynolds are all smiles amid their ongoing legal battle. On Sunday night, the couple attended the SNL 50th anniversary special in New York City.
Fine. That's normal in Hollywood, but the lawsuit alleged she didn't just want to star, she wanted complete control. And Ryan, the Golden Boy comedic star, allegedly was all too happy to help. The lawsuit eventually went public, painting a picture of clandestine meetings, power grabs, and behind-the-scenes manipulation. According to the allegations, Blake demanded Justin's removal from the movie and orchestrated ways to cut him out entirely. Ryan reportedly joined forces, pressuring studio executives to sideline Baldoni so that the couple could control the film's direction. Evidence, the lawsuit claimed, included meeting notes, phone calls, emails, and possibly even recordings. For months, the pair tried to downplay everything. Ryan stuck to his trademark sarcasm, dropping witty one-liners as if he were still in character as Deadpool. Blake, meanwhile, launched a PR campaign to cast herself as a victim, a woman singled out by an overbearing director. She fed tabloids carefully curated stories of her personal trauma, painting Baldoni as the manipulative force at fault. Then came the SNL anniversary. You'd think if you're facing a high-profile lawsuit and rumors are swirling, the smart move might be to lie low. But Ryan and Blake did the opposite. They strutted onto that stage, posed for cameras, and bantered with the show's legendary alumni like they were returning royalty. Right away, something felt off. The energy wasn't quite there. Observers noted that the laughs after Ryan's quips were the kind that ring hollow, like a courtesy chuckle or an awkward cough. People in the audience, from established directors to lesser-known crew members, seemed uneasy.
Absolutely brilliant of SNL to invite and include Ryan Reynolds and Blake Lively. To lean into the humor, they are the epicenter of pop culture.
Tina Fey and Amy Poehler lobbed an innocuous question at Ryan, something about, "How's it going?" And instead of politely smiling, Ryan fired back with, "Great, why, what have you heard?" No one needed a detective to pick up on that tension. Those half-laughs that followed were not your standard SNL roars. They were the kind you give when you're so embarrassed for someone you're not sure whether to cringe or run. Meanwhile, Blake sat there, silent and expressionless. The camera caught a flash of something in her eyes. A perfect storm of anxiety and rage. She knew at that very moment that millions of viewers remembered precisely why "What have you heard?" was such a loaded question. It got worse. Enter Colin Jost, the man with a direct link to Scarlett Johansson, Ryan's former spouse. Colin delivered a biting piece of commentary in the Weekend Update segment, comparing a disgraced politician's attempt to reconcile with Donald Trump to Justin Baldoni ever wanting to work with Blake again. The audience froze for half a second, everyone's brain in overdrive. Did he really just name-drop Baldoni and Blake Lively in that context? Then came the scattered laughter, peppered with gasps. Colin, for his part, smirked. He knew the comedic kill shot had landed. In one stroke, he managed to highlight Hollywood's shared opinion that working with Blake Lively isn't exactly on anyone's wish list these days. The moment was broadcast live, no chance to cut, re-edit, or spin it. The world saw it, and so did Hollywood insiders. Blake's meltdown, it was said, began the second that punchline echoed through the studio. And from there, everything spiraled. You see, Hollywood thrives on illusions of glamour, but it's also built on alliances and paybacks. When the gates opened, more stories poured in. People who'd once worked with Blake started speaking up. Some had been forced to sign NDAs, but through anonymous sources or carefully worded interviews, they revealed a whole lot of drama behind that carefully cultivated facade. Suddenly, unflattering details from Blake's years on Gossip Girl resurfaced. Former colleagues whispered about how she'd allegedly tried to turn the set against Penn Badgley for reasons that were never entirely clear. He'd committed the crime of existing, according to some. Then, of course,
It is the zeitgeist, bullseye, and for Ryan and Blake to participate is nothing short of genius.
the monstrous meltdown with a journalist named Kirsty Flahaven, who dared to congratulate Blake on her pregnancy. Blake's response? She congratulated the journalist in return. Only Kirsty wasn't pregnant and had publicly discussed her struggles with infertility. The public found it downright cruel and heartless. Then, the real bombshell. Blake, the self-styled feminist icon, had hired a crisis manager with strong CIA ties named Nick Shapiro. Yes, the same Nick Shapiro who'd been linked to high-level political cover-ups. This wasn't your run-of-the-mill publicist. This guy specialized in burying stories, controlling narratives, and turning the tide of public opinion. Months earlier, Blake had condemned Justin Baldoni for weaponizing PR in his lawsuit. Now, she was employing one of the biggest players in that game. Headlines started popping up, praising Blake's legal victories or claiming she was about to make a triumphant comeback. But if you dug a little deeper, it turned out there weren't any actual legal wins. The judge had denied certain subpoenas, the case was still ongoing, and nothing was won except for strategic headlines. People started asking, who's paying for these suspiciously pro-Blake stories? The pieces began to fit together, and the public's patience was wearing thin. Once 2025 rolled around, the bomb dropped. Ryan himself was now a co-defendant in the lawsuit. Baldoni alleged that Ryan wasn't just an innocent bystander, but a key figure pushing to oust him from his own film project. According to reports, a secret meeting took place in early 2024 with Sony executives, and Ryan was right there, demanding that Baldoni be locked out of production. The aim? To hand Blake total control. This was more than just a rumor. There were documents, alleged meeting notes, and possibly recordings that pinned Ryan as the ringleader in forcibly removing Baldoni from the film. For years, Ryan had leveraged his lovable internet troll persona to get away with edgy jokes and witty roasts. But Hollywood at large doesn't take kindly to sabotage. Once the mask slipped, big players began backing off. Upcoming projects quietly recast roles or delayed announcements. Co-stars who once happily hyped Ryan's comedic genius stopped mentioning him. The message was loud and clear. The industry was done risking its own image to stand by someone facing such serious allegations. The fiasco was just as brutal for Blake. Her longtime brand had been effortlessly glamorous. America's sweetheart, feminist icon.
I haven't given myself time to recover or time to heal. I had a intense year.
And A-lister with a heart of gold. Magazine editors had lined up to feature her as the perfect mother, actress, and entrepreneur. Yet cracks had been showing for months thanks to the lawsuit's revelations. In addition to the Kirsty Flahaven incident, the gossip from the It Ends With Us set was brutal. More than 50 crew members allegedly described her as controlling, manipulative, and downright tyrannical. Some claimed she imposed bizarre rules, like forbidding crew members from making eye contact with her Others said she demanded reshoots on a whim, ignoring union guidelines and pushing people to exhaustion. These horror stories might have stayed buried if not for the meltdown. Now they were front and center. While all of this was unfolding, the rest of Hollywood watched from the sidelines. The second Colin Jost delivered his infamous line, a tacit signal was sent. If SNL, arguably an institution in comedic pop culture, was willing to take a direct shot at Blake's career, the gloves were off. Hollywood tends to close ranks around scandalized stars if there's a chance of redemption or a compelling reason to protect them. But once you become more trouble than you're worth, everyone distances themselves faster than you can blink. Casting directors started looking elsewhere, producers quietly replaced them with new faces, and longtime allies politely sidestepped questions in interviews. As for the mainstream press, they continued to publish occasional fluff pieces, presumably fed by that crisis PR pipeline, but the stories were overshadowed by countless negative anecdotes from people who'd had first-hand experiences working with both Ryan and Blake. What about Justin Baldoni? If you think he skulked away defeated, think again. His name is now attached to one of the most talked about lawsuits in recent Hollywood memory. He might have lost a direct hand in the film's release, but ironically, the fiasco turned him into a sympathetic figure for many who felt overshadowed or bullied by big-name stars. Baldoni's not exactly an industry pariah. On the contrary, more producers and studios might be inclined to work with him now that he's proven he won't get steamrolled by powerful celebrities. Sometimes the best revenge in Hollywood is watching your adversaries sabotage themselves, and sabotage themselves they did. Ryan's ill-advised jokes, Blake's meltdown during interviews, their questionable hiring of an ex-CIA crisis fixer, all culminating in a scorching SNL takedown that hammered the final nail in the coffin of their
ongoing legal battle between Justin Baldoni and Blake Lively. An interview recorded prior to the lawsuits has been released where Baldoni alludes to having a difficult year.
Perfect couple facade. Let's be very clear. Hollywood loves a comeback, but it also relishes a spectacular fall from grace. The spectacle of watching two cherished stars unravel in real time is catnip for tabloids and gossip columns. And the more that leaked out about Blake's alleged nastiness on set, about Ryan's overbearing role in removing Baldoni, about the endless swirl of contradictory headlines and PR spin, the less patience people had for them. By the time we reached that SNL milestone, it was open season. People in the industry, from stagehands to producers, had been holding their tongues for ages. Now, they no longer felt compelled to maintain the illusion. That joke by Colin Jost said in front of millions, which is like Justin Baldoni saying, "I'd love to work with Blake again," was permission. The audience's half-second hush before laughter was everyone processing the truth. The Teflon veneer was gone. And it's not just about some random personal feud either. The fiasco exposed how the Hollywood power game actually operates. Pulled strings, hush-hush meetings, sabotage, intimidation, none of that is new. But rarely does it get dragged out in front of the public so blatantly, featuring such big names. Even SNL itself seemed to break its usual soft roast approach for this one, allowing a joke that was more than a playful jab, it was a lethal strike. If Hollywood has a moral code, it's something along the lines of never let the audience see the real, messy power struggles. This time we saw them in full, and it was a car crash that no one could stop watching. There is, of course, the question of whether Blake and Ryan can pull off a redemption arc. Hollywood adores comeback stories. Celebrities can bounce back from almost anything if they handle the aftermath with humility, sincerity, and a genuine apology. But from everything we've seen, Ryan doubling down on his sarcastic shtick, Blake using back-channel PR to discredit negative press, they don't seem particularly interested in contrition. The problem with doubling down is that it leaves little room for graceful recovery. And now, with top-tier industry players distancing themselves, the uphill battle grows steeper by the day. What stands out most is that it took only a handful of minutes on a live comedy show to publicly cement their downfall. Saturday Night Live is iconic for comedic sketches, political satire, and big-name celebrity appearances. But that single harsh reference, delivered by a man with personal ties to the entire fiasco, revealed just how fed up the industry is. The subtle message was that no one really believes Blake's carefully spun victim narrative anymore, and no one respects Ryan's comedic deflections. Once you lose the industry's respect, you're done. People might still go see your movies or watch your interviews out of curiosity, but your stable alliances, the foundation that keeps an actor afloat, shrink rapidly. Doors close, phone calls stop, and you're left with a PR machine that can't keep the spinning plates from crashing down. Whether or not Justin Baldoni eventually patches things up with them is almost irrelevant. The The bigger story is that Blake and Ryan's carefully curated kingdom was toppled in spectacular fashion. They played the Hollywood game: power moves, behind-the-scenes manipulation, employing hush-hush crisis managers, controlling narratives. But it all backfired the moment they tried to waltz into that SNL special, ignoring the nuclear lawsuit overshadowing them. You can practically hear Hollywood sighing with relief at finally seeing them called out in a place as public and legendary as Studio 8H. The morale, if there is one, might be that no amount of glitz and PR can conceal the truth forever. Play with fire, and eventually the flames catch up. Blake Lively spent years sculpting a brand of sweet genuineness, while behind the scenes, evidence suggests she was anything but. Ryan Reynolds capitalized on his charming wise guy persona, only to have that comedic skill backfire when it became his main defense in a legitimate legal scandal. Now, they're both struggling to maintain their footing in an industry that's famously unforgiving. And ironically, the best summation of the entire fiasco came from an SNL Weekend Update anchor, delivering a pointed one-liner. Sometimes the simplest jokes hold the harshest truths. And in this Hollywood saga, that joke was the kill shot heard around the world.